Welcome back to another episode of Analyst Hour. I am your host, Andrew Regan, joined by my co-host, Michael Goldsmith. And in the studio today, we have our co-commissioner, Arvin Nunez. Welcome back to the show, Arvin. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Boys, so let's just jump right into it. I have to admit that week 3 was personally, even though I lost, my favorite week of ASL. This is the week where teams have pretty much officially worked out their kinks. They've had enough time to play together, hopefully build some chemistry. So, now we're fully into the swing of the season. It is hard to believe that the season, in terms of time, the regular season is halfway over. We only have 3 more weeks, 4 games left, which is really hard to believe. It is flying by. And I would love to just give a brief overview into each game. And let's start off with the Sizzlers and T-Birds. So I'll kind of take the reign for this as we played. Um, for reference, the Sizzlers defeated the T-Birds 21-15, ultimately covering their spread. T-Birds came out really hot. I believe we jumped to a 10-5 lead, and I credit that to the T-Birds, moving the ball, dispersing the offensive responsibility off of Colin, meaning you wanted myself and Ty to get involved. And we jumped out, 10-5. That was the game plan. Make sure, don't put everything on Colin's shoulders. Asking Colin to drop 15 points against the 3 best defenders in the league is a task that is, over his head. So we wanted to make sure to disperse the offensive responsibility. I got a few shots in, and Tyler was able to stretch the floor a bit. And then Connor Fu ultimately caught, heat from behind the arc, crawled his way back, and went into the half up 11-10. And that's when the T-Birds pretty much threw their game plan right out the window. When times got tough, we looked at Colin, and none of us really wanted responsibility other than him. And that's when we just got really blocky, really stagnant, played individualistic ball. And I guess, the Sizzlers opened up the second half as hot as they ended the first. And Connor was shooting really well. They were moving the ball really well. And they really just boiled it down to they were out cutting the T-Birds and they were out rebounding the T-Birds. So all the credit to them. T-Birds were too one-dimensional, threw the game plan out the window, and Scissors proved why they were number 1 in the power rankings, and they will be going into week 4. So hats off, Sizzlers, hats off to them. Mike, what was your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. I mean, I think the defense was great on both ends, and credit to both of you guys because both teams understood there's not a shot clock in this league, and I don't feel like there was many forced shots on either side. Just a lot. I mean, sometimes teams would possess it for a minute or more, and that's okay. And I think the Sizzlers that plays in the Sizzlers' favor. They're all athletes out there, and it was a long, grueling game as it always will be with them. But the defense was great. The not forcing shots was great at both ends. I think the offense, the T-Birds got a little stagnant towards the end in terms of the cutting and off-ball movement, where the Sizzlers were cutting the entire game to the point where one of them's bound to be missed. And I think that also could play into their athleticism and how their gas tank is bigger than anyone else's in the league. I mean, you saw them getting every 50-50 ball there. They kept the foot on the gas the entire game and really deserved the win. I think Connor Fu really did a good job listening to us. He shoots his threes when he needs to, and he's very efficient from there this season. And I think that's because he diversified that shot portfolio where now earlier in the season or in previous seasons, it was to shoot, shoot, shoot. So you would just smother him. Now that you're so scared of him attacking the rim, you can't smother him. It's freeing him up from 3. It's boosting his efficiency. He was great. You got good minutes from both Ian and Owen off the bench. And my last takeaway was I think if the Thunderbirds are going to be a contender, you need more from Tyler Trapp. I don't know if he had, from what I watched, he couldn't have had more than 2 points. It might have been less. He was great defensively, but at the end of the day, Colin needs help. That's not a slight at him. Most captains do, and you need help from your first round pick. And I think Tyler Trapp needs to find ways to create his shots better, dominate in the post more, stretch the floor because he didn't do a lot of that game. And I think his potential is a lot higher than what he played. So I think that's what you guys need to do going forward.
Yeah. Arv, what do you think?
Well, I'll say I'll give credit to the T-Birds because defensively, I know I think the Scissors were at they had like 17, maybe 18 points. Like I think it was like 17 points, and it was like it took a while for them. It was like a hard 4 points for them to get towards the end of that. Like it took like you guys were playing great defensively. I mean, the Scissors were just playing phenomenal. The ball movement, like they just kept passing. It was great. Like I mean, I give credit to the T-Birds for like keep going, even though the deficit was pretty large, but they were giving their all, and Scissors just I don't know, amounting to that and getting the win. It's pretty
One
good.
thing I want to shout out to the Sizzlers is that they beat Colin at his own game. In years past, I always complimented Colin for picking out the mismatch and hunting it relentlessly. And that is exactly what the Sizzlers did to the T-Birds. As soon as Ian checked in, they were kind of licking their lips, and they were made sure to get Connor on Ian, I think for 4 plays in a row, not total, 4 in a row though, which is pretty scary to see from the bench. That's really why they started off hot, and that's not a slight at Ian. You can't expect the fourth man to guard the captain. So no one is blaming Ian. Honestly, I blame the T-Birds that we let that happen. We knew they were going to be hunting for it, yet we did nothing about it. We looked like a deer in headlights. And there was a point where Colin called for a timeout, and we stopped the ball, and then credit to the Sizzlers for being like, you can't do that. We have the possession. You cannot call a timeout right now. And so Ian was stuck out there, and again, they just really did a good job of finding the mismatch. Really credit to them for getting that second half. I mean, it's a game of runs, and they hit their stride very well, and they ultimately came up on top. And Mike, you're right. I mean, we need to help Colin, to ask him to put 13, 14 points on against a team like this. It's not crazy to say this could be a finals matchup down the line. So we just got to take it on the chin, have short-term memory, but know what to take away from this game. But that was a great heavyweight matchup and a great way to start us off.
Absolutely.
Now we will head over to my favorite game this season, and that was the Phantom Black Bears game.
Oh god. Yeah.
Sorry, Arv.
You said it right.
You want to talk about a game of runs?
Yeah.
This is it. Arv, why don't you kick us off?
Uh, we were really hot in the first half. I think it was what 11-3. I mean, I shot like
Yes.
I think I had like 3 threes in a row, like in the back. Like it was just craziness, and we just got up big. And then right after halftime, we scored like 1, maybe 2 points, and then Pissy was just unbelievable with the threes. Like he just hit 4 threes off Silva in a row, which was nuts. And they were like tough shots. Like he was like in the corner, and they like moved around, hit a fader, and then just like they all went in. I mean, credit to them. Like that was crazy by Pissy, my former captain. No disrespect, have all the love for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I will say, Pete played. I know he got minimal minutes. He didn't get many minutes, but like the minutes that he played, he was hustling. I respect that for him. Sty guy.
Mike, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I have to start shockingly giving the Phantom a huge shout out. A lot of teams down 11-3 at halftime, facing 0-3 and all but playoff elimination would have given up. And they came and they swung their haymakers. They won on the runs themselves. I mean, Arvin, you do deserve credit because I know you were pretty inefficient those first 2 weeks and you were absolutely on fire that game, and especially the first half. And you deserve your flowers for that. But the Phantom really found a way to bite back. I was telling Ryan earlier that he didn't have the most efficient game, but I think did his dominance in the post and just his post presence as a whole is what allowed Pizzicrita to go on that run. You guys had to put so much focus on him in the post. You had to have Silva back there doubling him at times with you or Cole, and it really freed up Pizzicrita and allowed him to look like the best version of himself. So though it wasn't the best performance by Ryan, his presence alone allowed Pizzicrita to do his thing, and he absolutely deserves credit for that. So I think in terms of you guys, I mean, I think Silva settled for a lot of shots where he kind of pound dribbled a few times and shot a three, almost like Tatum does frustratingly sometimes. And you just wanted to attack the basket more. That's what he's good at. That's bread and butter. So I'd like to see Silva be more aggressive. I think Cole gave you guys a great performance. And you mentioned earlier, and when Pete and Luke were out there, I mean, neither of them. I don't think either of them scored, but Pete was just way more willing to give the energy and get physical. And I want to challenge Luke to be more physical and throw his body around more and just give. I'm not even going to call it an effort thing, but I want to see more aggression. I'm not even talking about shot selection, but Luke definitely needs to be more gritty, and I don't think that's a secret after watching that, and that helped Pete out. And I guess the only critique I have for Phantom on that, and this is 2 weeks in a row they've done it. I do not understand why Ryan is the one who's been subbing out for Pete. I think Dennis should be doing that. It's not a slight at Dennis. Ryan is the #1 pick in the draft. He should be out there all game. He was captain 3 years in a row. He was out there for long, grueling games the entire game. I know there's been questions about his cardio, but I know he can do it. I know he can play at a high level for the full 21. So going forward, I'd like to see them sub out Dennis for Pete. But overall, they should be proud of themselves, and I don't think the Black Bears should be too upset either. It was just a crazy run.
A really insightful, Mike. I love the takes. I really want to organize my thoughts per half, and it's going to be very easy to do that because the first half was all the Black Bears, and the second half was all the Phantoms. So I'm going to harp it on the Black Bears for the first half. Let's get a few things on the table. The Black Bears are a good team. I think despite the loss, they really showed that they're a good team. I haven't seen the box score yet, but Cole must have had at least 5 blocks. There was ones that you thought, you saw them coming, and then there was times where he kind of just flew out of nowhere and was able to get the swat. So kudos to him. Another one was Silva's leadership is incredible. I love how vocal he is out there. I love that he can run a huddle. And I think his teammates really appreciate that. And again, building that candid cadence is huge, especially early. So very happy for him. And another thing that Silva does that has really earned my respect as a captain is that he is one of the few captains that does the bitch work for his team. And what I mean by that is sprinting after loose balls, engaging in the scrap. There's not a lot of captains who do that. And, Silva is the first one to do that on his team. And I think that's awesome that he's willing to roll up his sleeves, get dirty with the game. And it's awesome. A lot of respect for him for that. Arvin, congrats, man. It took you about 93s to do it, but you finally caught heat behind the arc. I knew it was in you. I mean, you definitely have like Hall of Fame microwave badge. When you are hot, you are on. Way to close out that first half. That was incredible. I love to see that you found your footing behind the arc. I'm sure your teammates are happy to see it as well. And again, I have very high hopes for the Black Bears, despite the loss, despite the crumbling. I think you guys are a great team. Mike, you brought up a good point. So when the fourth men checked in, that definitely raised my eyebrows because, let's look at Pete. I think Pete had the worst minutes in his entire career last week. I think he checked in against the Hoopers maybe for 2 minutes, had 2 turnovers, was pickpocketed twice, and they lost the game at that point. This week was the complete opposite. He was the guy doing the bitch work for the Phantom. Like, this is what I mean. Like, he really embraced chasing those loose balls, getting those rebounds, those 50-50 balls, where his counterpart, Luke, couldn't be more far from that. Luke has had a incredible body transformation where it's almost like his identity as a basketball player has to change with it. And he was not doing the bitch work. He wasn't going up for those 50-50 balls. He's not shooting the ball. He was simply just out there collecting cardio minutes. So Arvin, I want to ask you, this is your teammate I'm talking about. Luke is no longer 350 pounds, setting incredible screens to get opportunities, opening opportunities. So now that he is, a slimmer dude and you're not going to get that brick wall out of him, how do you plan on using Luke going forward?
So I mean, not in a mean way, but like Ian, he was in a similar situation where he lost not nearly as much weight as Luke, but he lost a lot of weight and like his game style was definitely different and he was more active. So I think Luke has to maybe play a little bit more like wide ball Hale in a way and just moving around more because that's all it takes. Like like Dennis had me running around, it tired me out a little bit. And like just moving around the court, it just gets guys tired and just using that and then open spots. So and it's the best way to do it. Just being aggressive, I'll say.
So you're gonna tell Luke, look at Ian Hale, use him as an example to dictate your game.
I'm sure he'll love that.
Yeah.
Not
We
to
all want
that
to emulate our
full
game off of
extent.
someone, right? So like, Michael may want to be like Nick Young, right? Like Colin, maybe Jason Tatum. Luke should emulate
Yeah.
Ian Hale, is what I'm hearing.
Well,
We
I'm
all have the
just
people we
saying,
look up to.
I'm just
I
saying
also think
that's
that's a good point.
ASL comparison. All right, that's his ASL comparison.
Sure.
But yeah,
Sure.
we'll just leave
I
it
will
at
say,
that.
I just want to say, I don't think that's honestly a bad point because Ian has become a lot more mobile since he shedded, obviously a lot less weight than Luke shedded, but he's become a lot more mobile. You see his increased defensive intensity. So I actually don't think that's a bad point, all jokes aside.
No, it is a great point, Arvin. I think you handled that
Appreciate it.
perfectly.
Mhm.
Ian's activity, comes in many different ways, which is why it's great to have him on the bench. Like, he's a guy who can give you just like a 3 out of nowhere. He can grab that incredible rebound that saves you the possession. Like Luke can do that, kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. So I thought that was a great point.
Yeah.
Now I get to talk about the Phantom. And going into the second half, the headline of that is Pissy is back. I need to pat myself on the back a little bit. He must have watched Analyst Hour because he did everything I told him to do. He really wore his C, he wore his captainship, he wore his coachship. We haven't seen that gear and that killer instinct of Alex Pisacreta in over a year. We really didn't see it with the Pack because he really wasn't in that back against the wall type thing before. Like you said, Mike, they were down 0-2 and 11-3 at half. His back was against the wall. Now we're getting into playoff contention, the lack of playoff contention, territory. So he was really able to pick it up. He was incredibly vocal. He helped Ryan score. He created opportunities. He really embodied being the main ball handler to create these opportunities for himself. They were setting screens. Everyone was getting movement off ball and with the ball where so many opportunities came up and they executed on a lot of them. He even got Dennis a few good open shots that Dennis hit, which is exactly what you need out of him. You need Dennis to be, the A1 defender he is, and then give you maybe 1 or 2 extra baskets a game. And that's exactly what Dennis was. And Ryan played exactly how he should have played. He was the first overall pick. Great job. And Pete gave incredible minutes, the polar opposite to his last week's performance, just being the gritty, tough guy he is. And, that's why I think the Phantom were able to pull it out. I mean, Alex Issakrita hit massive shots where, he went out of character for him. So he kind of had to bend over backwards for it and was finishing tough at the rim as well. So that was one of my favorite games, game of streaks, game of runs, and that will go down as one of my favorite ASL games of the 2024 season. Then we can hop over to the Hoopers and Seabirds game. Guys, it's always tough when you have a sub. We have been pretty open that the sub pool is very, very low. When it comes to this year, our main priority is just getting a guy who can show up. The second priority is if we have options, we'll go with the guy who fits the better of the 2 missing guys. We haven't really had that luxury this year, ever. So our main priority is getting your guys to show up. So, we've had people reach out to us to be like, oh, it's not fair. We deserve this sub, what yada, yada. Guys, I'm sorry. We're trying to get you your guys, but I can only think of one way that this doesn't happen. Can you tell me what it is? You get your guys to show up. That's the one way this will never happen and everybody's happy. You get your guys to show up. At the end of the day, my takeaway is that Nick Resendez looks 2 weeks behind. The Hoopers have not been fully strength yet. They look 2 weeks behind. They do have their work cut out for them. 0-3 is really tough. Mike, we'll either talk about playoff scenarios this episode or the next, but, I would love to know their percentage of making playoffs at this point. I do believe in them. I think they're a good team. They got, a versatile skill set. I think Nick is a good leader when he turns it on and he kicks it into gear. We know what Germano's capable of. We know what Gerges is capable of, and we know how well Carter works with a point guard as his best player. So all the pieces are there metaphorically, but not all the pieces are there at West Middle School basketball courts week after week, which is why they're 0-3. It's really tough to see. Curtin will probably be MVP. He can't be stopped. You can give him whoever. I think all the sub nonsense I just spewed applies to everyone but him. Huge shout out to Trottier. It's almost like he took that game personal, like he was just really on the ball. It's looked like he was out for Seabird blood. It was bizarre. He was so good. He was on fire. Seems like he couldn't miss, putting in the extra work defensively as well. So hats off to him. What were your takeaways, Mike?
Yeah, well, I will start. You asked for the Seabirds playoff outlook, and they really have one shot to get in at this point. They're 0-3. They're one game back of the Black Bears, who have the tiebreaker, and 2 games back of both of the Thunderbirds, who also the tiebreaker. What they should be eyeing is the Legion, who they're 2 games back of, and yet there's no tiebreaker at play. So what they need to do to get themselves in position to make the playoffs is they need to get within 1 game of the Legion by week 7 for that matchup. And if they beat if they're there and they win that game, they're in. It's going to be tough to gain because they have to gain a game. It's going to be tough with doubleheader weekend, and the week after that they have the gauntlet of matchups. I don't know off the top of my head, but if they can get 1 game back of Legion by week 7, then that game becomes a win and get in game in all likelihood. So that's really their path. In terms of the game itself, I don't have a ton of different notes than you. I mean, I think it was kind of the opposite of the Phantom, where they took that first punch and they just lied down on the floor and they gave up, which was a complete opposite. And I get it. You're missing 2 of your guys. We also knew that they were going to be dependent on Gergis to keep them engaged, and he wasn't there to do that. But I think the effort clearly was different from minute 1 and minute 20. And you don't want to see that from anyone. And if you watch that last basket of the game, anyone could have helped there, and they didn't. It just that basket alone was all you needed to see. So hopefully that they're 0-3, but they have a shot and they don't give up on the season as they did that game, because it's still very much alive. As you said, you could give Curtin anyone and he'll show up with a smile on his face, play, and cook the other team. Trot was also a great sub, and he had some mismatches that he took advantage of. And the Prince Zuko, really, one thing he still brings, which he brought back when he was in his playing days as a full-time player, is that perimeter defense, which is honestly a great replacement for what Mburu brings to the table. So overall, I mean, the Hoopers have got to be feeling great. They get Campbell back next week, and we'll figure out their sub situation going forward. But the Seabirds really need a fight, and I think Dan can will them to put up a fight the rest of the season, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, Arvin, before we hand it to you, I just do want to, I don't want to throw salt in the wound, but the Seabirds have yet to play the T-Birds. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong schedule. They already played us. They haven't played the Dogs or the Sizzlers yet. 2 incredibly hard matchups, despite the Dogs now being 1 and 2. Obviously, it's still going to be a tough matchup. So, I mean, they have built a mountain that they have to climb themselves now. I really hope they do it. I think they're going to be a fun team, and I just don't want this season to go down as a wasted potential. So, Arv, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I hope to see a full squad, especially with doubleheader weekend coming up. I think they could potentially sweep the weekend. Like they got like you guys said, they have the assets. Like they all can do their job, and they can definitely be like one of the best teams in the league. But it's just the best ability is availability. So
yeah,
you say that every year. Let's go through like their matchups. So we're going into doubleheader weekend, right? The Seabirds have the Phantom for game 1. Then the Seabirds have the Dogs for game 2. Then in week 5, they have the Sizzlers. And then in week 6, they have the Legion. What are the odds they go on a 3-game win streak these next 2 games? And then it comes down to
money
taking on
line.
the Legion.
What are we saying? Percentage, money line? I mean,
whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I'll I'll give him a 10% chance. Maybe that's generous. I mean, it's very hard to go on a 3-game win streak. Only one of 8 teams has gone on a 3-game win streak to start the season. So that should say it alone.
I think they need to depend on their opposition having subs. Like at this point, like it's very hard to believe that they haven't even played full strength yet. So again, like that's another layer to add into this. They don't really know their chemistry. They haven't had the opportunity to establish an identity. They've had this revolving door of subs, like I talked about last week. Like, they are so far behind. I think their only shot of pulling off a 3-game win streak is their opponents have subs.
Like,
Yeah, I think it's a fine take. I mean, also, I don't know. I'm not run through all the matches in my head, but if you have smaller guys and maybe Carter and Nick can just pound the paint, maybe that'll help them in one of those games. But yeah, you're right. They need the other teams to pull a Seabirds, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
I mean, if they could beat the Phantom, I mean, and like I feel like game 2 for any team is literally up in the air because everyone's gonna be tired from game 1 of the weekend, and it could go just who's less tired, who can hit their shots still, So it's possible. It's possible, but yeah, they definitely need their guys.
They are one of 2 teams in this league, them and the Phantom, that fate is not in their own hands, meaning they have to root for, not only do they have to go on a run themselves, but they have to root for other teams to win in order to be able to make it.
Mike, you were there with the Swarm. How was it?
What that? Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that, and
Not
Silva,
a good position to be in.
No, Silva broke our heart that year. Yeah. It's not fun when fate's in other teams' hands. I can tell you from firsthand experience.
Yeah, definitely tough. But let's go to the game that is, on the front page of every newspaper this week, and that is the Legion and the Dogs. Mine's gonna be short and sweet. So before I kick it off to you, Mike, just viewing it, I thought the Legion looks like they put their studying hours in. They wanted to bounce back off of their loss last week. Steve couldn't hit anything, and the Legion couldn't miss anything. I'll just pose this question. I'm very curious to see if we were to run that back. If the Tides, were a bit more even, meaning like the Dogs played how, you would think they'd play, and the Legion played how you think they'd play, what the final score would be. But I do not want to take away any credit. All the credit goes to the Legion, who might be my sleeper pick for Andover's team this year because, they're the underdogs. You guys are kind of playing with house money. I'm very high on you guys. I think you're a very, deep and skilled team. But, enough about me. I want to hand the mic over to a guy who was there, was on the court. I was courtside, but you were on the court, Mike.
Yeah, and I got to take off my analyst cap to start. I first want to say I do not blame anyone after our week 2 for performance for thinking that we were not going to win that game. That being said, last week's episode definitely was bulletin board material. I mean, I can't fault you guys for picking against us, but saying the spread was 10.5 and that there's a good
No, we said it should have been 10.5.
Okay, but you were both hammering that alternate line and just saying like, I think you said something like you got to know when you should quit. Like, look, I get it. If I wasn't on the Legion, I probably wouldn't have picked us after seeing what we did in week 2. But being on the team, I know how much belief we all have in each other, and I was confident going into it that if we hit our threes, that we could come out on top. The last take I'm going to say before I do turn to an analyst here is Costas Anzopoulos had one of the guttiest performances I have seen in my life. I think 5 minutes in, he took a completely accidental elbow from Steve. His mouth was bleeding. He could barely breathe through it at one point, and he was incredibly gutty. He toughed it out, swished some water through his mouth, got back out there, and he held us all so accountable throughout the game. He has just exceeded all expectations I could have had for him as a captain in terms of like he held us all accountable. Oh, we didn't switch. Costa's going to yell at us. We didn't crash a rebound. Costa's going to yell at us. You make a stupid play. You don't step up. He did a great job of bringing out the best of all of us, and he deserves credit for that. But in terms of the game, analyst cap is on. I think all it was one of those games where I don't think any of the 8 players had a particularly bad game. I think Steve didn't play to his potential, and it's a bad game by his standards. I don't think he was bad, and I think he got really good help from the supporting cast for the most part, which makes it even more surprising that we pulled off the upset, because I think Beraldi, CJ, and Pat all had great games. I think all 4 players of the Legion played very well. And what it really, team, it was a battle. It was back and forth the entire way, and it was 18-15 dogs, and we hit 3 of our next 4 threes, and that's what it came down to. But it really could have gone either way there. It was an incredible game to be a part of. My one piece of advice for the dogs, I know they're playing 3 of my division rivals coming up, and I know Steve knows basketball way better than I do, but when he is attacking the basket, instead of having his teammates set out on the perimeter, if he has someone in that, they call it the dunker spot in the ASL, it should probably be the layup spot. But if you have someone in that dunker spot, instead of sitting on the perimeter, they're going to be open. You have an open layup instead of an open shot. So I would definitely use that more, because that killed us and they kind of turned away from it. But yeah, obviously we know the dogs are far from gone. I'm not going to do the whole they're mortal thing. It was an off day for them, and they should bounce back. And the Legion still have a lot of work cut out for us.
Michael, I can't lie. When you were talking about, teeing up, I have a suggestion for the dogs. I was ready to rip on you and be like, yeah, because Steven Shaw's scratching his head right now, like, oh, like, I
No,
need a suggestion for Michael Goldsmith. But I think you were spot on. I think you're spot on. So I'll definitely give you a pat there.
yeah.
I love the Legion as an objective fan of the game. I think you guys are so funny with your whole like kumbaya, it's the friends we made along the way mentality. Like, you guys are so like, Costa's right. Like, if we want to win this game, it's on us. Like, like, I think you guys are great. I think you guys are all stand-up dudes, and I'm very high on the Legion. Arv, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it was a great game to watch. I mean, like, you literally couldn't miss, and Costa was just unbelievable. Louis played really well. George, great. You too, Mike.
Thanks.
So like, I mean, it was just a great game, and it was a great bounce back from T-Brisk game.
I really want to kind of hone in on Louis for a second, because I think I said this a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago. Like, we put a lot of pressure on that kid, saying that if you didn't essentially take him at 1, you're wrong. He fell to 4. Would you say he's your pick to win Role Player of the Year?
I'm obviously biased, but I don't see how you can go any other way. I really don't. At this point of the season, 3 weeks in, he hit that incredible game winner. He had to have at least 9 points, and he absolutely carried us week 1 in a captainless game. It's hard to take anyone else 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, you guys really have, 1A and 1B with Costa and Louis. And they were both hot last game. You guys looked, had incredible synergy. Like I said, the study sessions are paying off. You guys are bought in, and I think that's a very underrated attribute for teams in this league. How bought in you are, how many team practices you run, how often the group chat is popping. And I think you guys check all those boxes, and it showed. I'm very excited to watch you guys finish out the rest of this season, because unlike any other team, like, you guys have played very under your potential, but some may argue with this past game, you've played above your potential. So it's like, where are you going to fall? Maybe last game was the Legion, and that's what you guys are going to, consistently do. But I'm excited to watch you guys in doubleheader weekend. And yeah, let's hop into that. Any final takeaways, boys, from week 3?
No, I mean, as you're saying, doubleheader weekend is going to be a bloodbath, and there is an incredible amount of playoff implications going this week. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Doubleheader weekend is notorious for flipping the league standings on its ass. Right now, some teams are feeling comfortable, some are not. But don't get married to your location in the standings, because doubleheader weekend is officially upon us. Mike, historically, what types of teams do well in doubleheader weekend?
I mean, obviously, I'm just thinking about the types of teams that do well. It's the teams with stamina. I don't think that's a secret. I think that sets up very well for the Sizzlers, who are already 3-0. But I mean, it's really just it's the teams that I think it's the teams. I'm going to take your term. It's the teams with the most guys that are willing to do the bitch work. The teams that are willing to set that extra hard screen, fight through a screen, fight for every offensive rebound, every 50-50 ball. When you're playing two games in grueling hot weather, you need to have it's almost about more the little things and the talent at some points, where it's the scrappiness, the grit, the screen setting, the diving on the floor if you need to. I think those things, and the teams that are willing to put their bodies on the line, will do better in 2 long games. And this is in the midsummer in Andover, so that's what I think will serve those teams well.
And now, Arvin, I'll pose this question on you. What do you think is a better strategy going into doubleheader weekend? Preserving your energy, meaning kind of giving, game 1 50%, giving game 2 50%, or do you think it's definitely get a win? Dedicate 100% to game 1, and whatever you have left in the tank, you give in game 2.
Yeah, I think you just got to go for game 1. That's the biggest game there is, because game 2, everyone's gonna be tired. Everyone's played a game. Like everyone's already been through the 21 points, 30+ minute games, maybe 45 minute, like whatever. So everyone's already fatigued. So it's gonna be like easier. It's gonna be probably more lazy defense. You'll see. I mean, everyone's still gonna be trying their best, but I mean, people will just be slower for game 2. So I think just go after for game 1, and anything can happen in game 2.
I agree, Arvin. I think it's a better strategy to go all in game 1, solidify that win, because if you leave doubleheader weekend 1-1, I mean, that's a wash because they're both out of conference, games. So that's a wash for yourself. The only way you're going to be jumping around the leaderboard at that point is if another team goes off or falls off.
Yeah.
So definitely getting game 1 is very important. I think game 2 is a more even playing field than we think. Very often are we going to say, oh, they won game 2 because they were so good at preserving their energy during, game 1. So definitely go all in game 1. I agree with you on that. Another question I want to ask before we jump into these games specifically is, and I'll give you guys a moment to think. So I'll kick us off. Give me a player or two that you are really looking at for doubleheader weekend, and I'll go with 2, and they're very similar players. I'm looking at Tyler Trapp very closely, and I'm looking at Carter Brzezinski very closely. I don't really want to beat a dead horse. We know Tyler Trapp, didn't give his best performance week 3. We know he has it in him because we saw it in week 1. He was player of the game. So we need him to come out swinging for the doubleheader weekend. And for Carter Brzezinski, it is going to be his ASL 2024 debut. That isn't going to be incredibly challenging with being on a team that's 0-3. If they really want to, they have to sweep. They have to go 2-0 in doubleheader weekend, and it all might start in the hands of Carter Brzezinski. He needs to be active. He does need to do the bitch work. He needs to make sure he's in that layup spot at the end of every single drive. And yeah, those are the 2 players I'm going to be looking at very closely because I think they have a lot more responsibility than the average captain going into doubleheader weekend.
Arv, you go. I need one more.
Oh, I was gonna say probably Jack Curtin and Steven Shaw.
Let's break that down.
So Jack Curtin, I mean, he's been doing it all on his own, and so I just want to see, like, I mean, he's a crazy athlete, freakish athlete, and it's just gonna be crazy to see, like, with his subs and see what happens. I mean, Campbell's back. It'll probably have a sub for Jesse Finn and Maburu. So just to see how that plays out for 2 games in a row, just see if they can keep on chugging. And Steve, because I mean he plays the Seabird, so it'd be. I know that's supposed to be an easy matchup, but I mean if the Seabirds are all there, you never know, especially after. I think Steve's going to try to like bounce back and have a really big week, try to go off because he did seem a little frustrated this past week. But it'd be
You
interesting.
think the Seabirds can pull a Legion?
I think so. I think the Seabirds are a really good team. I can't sleep on them. I think they can really do it. with
They
Gerges
have to
back,
use their size with Carter.
Carter.
If they really want to win, it's going to have to go through Carter.
I mean, even Jamal's been there every single week, and he's been phenomenal. He's been really gritty. He's been going after ball, rebounds, assisting, shooting. So I give credit to the Seabirds tremendously.
All right. I'm excited to see what they can do with Carter. They need to establish their feet very well and very quickly. Mike, who are you looking at closely in doubleheader weekend?
Yeah, my first one is going to be Campbell Prentice because look, we've seen what Jack Curtin has been able to do with his subs. It's been incredible. Campbell, I don't think played to his potential week one. It was a weird game. I mean, he's still always a great defender, was deep boy for a reason. But we need to see if Campbell is going to be enough to help Curtin reach true contention because Curtin, he can get these regular season wins on his own. He's my MVP right now. He was before the season and he still is. But if you're going to compete with the Sizzlers or Dogs in the playoffs, or even the Phantom for that matter, you need we need to see how high Campbell's ceiling truly is on this team. It's definitely something to watch for. You know Jack Curtin's going to put him in the right spots. You know he's going to play great defense. But what is he going to be enough for them to be a true contender? That's something I'm very interested to see over these next 2 weeks. And my other pick is Nick Silva because we saw, I mean, Nick Silva, his last season with the Stampede, he started 0-3, and his back was against the wall, and he really had to turn it on. Granted, the Seabirds are in the division. They're 0-3. The Black Bears are the tiebreaker on them. The Black Bears are 1-2. This is a huge stretch. Silva did not play his best last game. I'm excited to see what the kind of energy he brings going into this week. We've seen it before. We've seen him channel it. We've seen him show up to the court, locked in, not talking to anyone, and dominate. And I want to see if we can get that Silva again because that was incredible to watch. As you said, I mean, I'm not taking much away from him because he's been a great captain, a great leader, great defender. But if he can be as aggressive as he was, use those post moves, drive and kick to his teammates like he's done in the past, and just truly bring the energy that he did before, it's going to be fun to watch. So I'm really excited to see what Silva brings to the table, starting 1 and 2 back against the wall.
I really like that take, Mike. All right, so looking at doubleheader weekends, let's talk about each team individually really quickly. We'll talk about the Legion first.
Okay.
They take the Sizzlers on in game 1, and then they take the Hoopers on in game 2. Wow, you guys have a challenging doubleheader weekend ahead of you. Do you think you guys will split 2-0, 0-2?
I'm going to go in with confidence that we can pull both games out. But at the same time, the Sizzlers are a terrifying matchup. And as a Legion player, it sucks to have to play them in the first leg of a doubleheader because it's kind of what you were talking about. Like, you want to go 100%, but you're playing the best team in the league. They're physical. They grind you out. It could be a very long game. And then you could have no energy left for that game too, while losing to the best team in the league. So it's really that question you asked really applies to Legion on how to play this. I mean, I think you gotta give 100% both games, obviously, but it's tough. I do think, we were going into the season, we said we could beat any team or lose to any team. That was before the season started, and it clearly has shown so far. So we will see. If the 3-point shots are falling, we can go 2-0, and if we're bricking everything that we did week 2, we can go 0-2. It could be either way.
Okay. I'm on the fence. I think you guys either go 0-2 or you'll split. I will have to be on the contrary with you saying you guys will sweep.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, the one thing I have in both of my opinions is that you're losing to the Sizzlers. I just think this is your nightmare matchup. I think you guys, and I you know how high I am on the Legion. I think you guys are and I say this with respect, I think you're the Walmart version of the Sizzlers. And I think this is the Sizzlers. I think this is your nightmare matchup. I think this is going to be a big brother, little brother type thing. If you somehow pull off a victory against the full strength Legion and Connor Fu doesn't snap his ankle mid game, knock on wood, I think you guys would be the new favorites. You would have to be. I mean, you're going for the throne now. However, if you do sneak away with one win, I think it's going to be on the Hoopers. And I think the one thing the Legion did really well last week, and I'm going to trust that that's the true Legion, is you guys can get the ball moving and spread the floor. and essentially, wear out the other team's best player, because that's exactly what you did against Steven Shaw. I say it wouldn't be crazy if you just did that again against Jack Curtin. You wear out the other team's best player. Jack Curtin really hasn't had the opportunity to develop any chemistry with Campbell. He had week 1, but that was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And he's he's gonna have another sub. It really probably won't be Trot, because at that point I think Trot's a little bit better than Mburu and Jesse. So we're probably gonna have to ship Trot elsewhere to be a sub. So you're gonna have to wear Curtin out. You guys did it against Steven, so I don't think it's a crazy take to say that you'll do it against Curtin, game 2 of doubleheader weekend. So I'll lock that in. I say the Legion will go 1-1. Arv, what about you?
Yeah, I don't see the Legion beating the Sizzlers, but they did beat the Dogs, and they lost to but like they also lost to the T-Birds without a captain. So it's really a toss-up. They're just unpredictable team. I mean, they're a great team, and they all played well, but it's just very unpredictable, to be honest, from what we've seen this season. So I could see them go 1-1. Maybe if they're really like playing perfect basketball, they could do that 2-0, but I really doubt it. And I see the 1-1, and I see a 1-1 more than an 0-2 out of the Legion.
Okay, so you're locking that in.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk about the Black Bears. Arvin, I'm looking at this. Like I said, I think you guys are I think you guys are going to go 0-2. I don't think you're going to be able to beat the Hoopers. And when you guys have empty tanks, I don't think you're going to beat the Sizzlers. So I want you to prove to me, or at least defend your case. Why am I wrong?
I mean, yeah, there's toughest teams we have. I think we just have to learn from our mistakes from last game and just keep it rolling. I think it's more of a, to be honest with you, like if we the way we're playing right now, yeah, we'll go 0-2. So it's definitely a big wake up call for us as a team to be like, we got to prepare this week, because they are two really good teams. So
I mean, if you guys are sitting at 1-4 at the end of doubleheader weekend, the Seabirds got a chance.
Yeah, but we won't see. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
I have to be honest, Aaron. You're not convincing me.
I mean, there's, but
yeah,
I mean, all I'm saying
Mike wants
is
to tap in.
What do you want to say, Mike?
No, I know. I mean, look, yeah, you're not really oozing with confidence about either of those matchups right now. I know you don't want to disrupt any chemistry or anything. Believe me, I get it, but yeah, it's gonna be tough. Similar to the Legion, if you guys are gonna win a game, it's gonna be against the Hoopers, because I'm just gonna say it. You are not gonna beat the Sizzlers. They are too good.
But we're not playing this. I thought it was the Dogs and Hoopers.
What was it? The Sizzlers or the Dogs?
Dogs, I believe, right?
No, Arvin, you're playing the Hoopers game 1 and then the Sizzlers game 2.
Oh,
so
nice.
as I was saying, they are not. I can't see them beating the Sizzlers. I can see a situation, game 1, tanks are all full, where Silva is going to do a better job on Curtin than 95% of guys. However, that does take him off Campbell, where Cole comes in and he was a D-point nominee. That if they're gonna win, it's gonna be a slugfest. But maybe the defensive intensity, and if Arvin can shoot better than 2 for 16 from 3, maybe they beat the Hoopers. But the Sizzlers is gonna be tough. I think they're gonna pick them apart.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll see.
Arv not really going to bat for his team right now.
No, we'll just play our game. We just got to do a lot of work.
We'll keep that energy. We'll keep that energy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll head over to the T-Birds. I am oozing with confidence, unlike Arvin. I think this is going to be a great matchup.
Who do you play?
We're taking on the Dogs game 1, and then we will be taking on the Phantom game 2. So just quickly, game by game, I think purely matchup-wise, I think the T-Birds have a far more favorable matchup against the Dogs. Our second best player is 6'4". Their second best player is, and Pat's incredible and incredibly skilled, is not 6'4". And I think we're going to be able to really play into that. We're going to use our size for our advantage. Colin also does have a winning record against Steve in the regular season. So I think this is something we're going to be prepared for. We also kind of have, it's kind of a privilege to have like I think the 3 starters and the 1 fourth man versus, 2 starters and then 2 fringe fourth men, rotate in and out. I think we're going to be able to play into our strengths, and I think we'll be able to get away week 1 or game 1. And then when it comes to the Phantom, this is definitely more of a similar matchup, but I really just think it's the shooting and the ability to stretch the floor that is going to get us the win in game 2. When, I think the Phantom can slip into bad habits and settle. But that's my takeaways. I think the T-Birds will go 2-0, and I'm locking it in.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the way the Dogs have looked the past 2 weeks. I would not be surprised if you beat them, but I'm gonna be with the mentality that Steve Shaw, if he didn't give everything he had last week, it's gonna be this weekend. I think he will empty the tank, and his supporting cast, all things considered, I know it's his worst supporting cast ever, and that's not a slight at any of them. That's just how the draft order worked itself out with the fixing this year. I think they've all given him really good minutes, and if they play the way they did last week, and Steve actually plays what he's shown he's capable of for 4 years now, then I think they can turn it on and beat you guys. I do have you guys beating the Phantom. I'm sure everyone's shocked, but I think you guys are just and I've given the Phantom their flowers that they deserve, but I don't see them contending with you guys. I think Tyler Trapp is very well equipped to nullify Ryan the best anyone can. And Colin on his perimeter defense on Pissy, he's not going to be hitting 4 threes. And you also are you have great defensive identity. Ian's a good spark plug off the bench, so I think you guys have the edge at almost 1 through 4, and I think you guys should win.
I agree with you, Mike, but I just see the Dogs. I think Steve is definitely going to take this week personally, for sure.
No, I did have the Dogs winning, just to clarify.
Oh yeah, then yeah, the Dogs I think are going to win, and so I'm going to disagree with you with the 2-0, Mr. Regan. I think Dogs got game 1, and the Phantom. I think you guys have a bigger size team. Like even though Tyler and Cadigan are, Tyler can definitely guard Cadigan, and Colin just towers over Pissy. So, it's gonna look like a block fest in the paint, I think. But yeah, that's my take.
All right, now let's talk about the Phantom. The Phantom have the Seabirds game 1, and then obviously the T-Birds game 2. We kind of laid out that we think it's a possibility that the Seabirds can sweep. So Mike, what are your thoughts on the Phantom this week? Do you think they'll get upset by the Seabirds?
Yeah, obviously I already gave my take against you guys. I think they're going to beat the Seabirds. This team has not chemistry, continuity is so big. Like Steve and Pat have won 3 titles together because they have great continuity. I think even the team, as you said, Resendez last week, it looked like it was his week 1 because it was. Now you have Carter on that, and these guys have not played together with the exception of Germano and Gergis this year, and I guess Germano and Resendez once, but it's going to be this is not the week to figure out your team. This is the week to solidify your identity, and I don't see the Seabirds beating the Phantom, who are starting to build their own identity after last week's win.
What do you think, Arv?
I think the Seabirds could. I'll stick to what I said earlier. They could win this game. They could, but cards are stacked against them, so I don't. Phantom are definitely more likely to win this game, so I think they'll probably win. But the Seabirds shouldn't count out the Seabirds. Is what I'm gonna say.
Okay, so the Seabirds have Phantom game 1, and then they have the Dogs game 2. Are they going 0-2 in doubleheader weekend?
They have they have the Dogs week 2. You said, yeah, they are going 0-2. Yeah, they probably are. They probably are. I hate to say it, and you want this, even though they're my division rival, I'd like to see it be competitive for this week 7 matchup or week 6 matchups in this case are always fun. But Yeah, they got a tough draw ahead, and they still need to. They haven't even got their feet wet as a team. So yeah, I
So
think they will go.
we're jumping ship on the Seabirds because a few about 30 minutes ago we were kind of like, oh, they strap it together, they're good to
Well,
go,
no,
and
I
now we're
was
saying
just
they're
saying.
going 0-2.
No, hold on, hold on. I was saying that math wise, if they can string it together, they have a chance. I didn't say I believe they were going to do it.
Ah, got it, got it. So you have the Seabirds starting off the season 0-5.
Yes.
Could the Seabirds be 100% out of playoff contention at the end of June 9th?
Yeah. There's a few teams that could if everything broke the wrong way with 2-0, 2-0. Yeah, they absolutely could. If they lose both games and the Legion win one game, and if the Legion and Blackbirds win one game, Black Bears, then they are out. So did I
That's
word that
not
clearly?
impossible.
Did I
I
word
would
that clearly
argue
enough?
that's likely to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, if so again, Seabirds go 0-2, Black Bears and Legion go 1-1 each. You screw me up on that. If Black Bears and Legion go 1-1 each, with the Seabirds going 0-2, the Seabirds are out.
Already with 2 weeks left.
That's
to play.
got to be That's got to be the earliest exclusion from playoffs ever.
Earlier than the Hellkites. It'll be earlier than the Hellkites last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, let's hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
But if I'm putting my money down, I have the Seabirds going 0-2. Which gives all of us agreeing that the Dogs would go 1-1.
I have them 2-0.
Oh, they're going 2-0. You have them
I
going
have
2-0.
2-0.
You
Yeah.
have them going 2-0. Casuals. And then we'll go to the Sizzlers. Mike, because I said the Legion are going to go. Oh, no, I apologize. Where do you have the Sizzlers going for doubleheader weekend?
I mean, look, the Sizzlers, I already touched on our game. I'm going to express confidence in my team. If we get hot, we can win that game. Who do they play? Who's the other team they play?
You're talking to them.
Oh, the Sizzlers are gonna. I touched on both games. The Sizzlers are gonna go 1-1. They're gonna lose to a red hot Legion team who just pulled the biggest upset of the year, and they will.
Red hot. They won one game.
Yeah, we were the biggest underdogs. That was the biggest underdog win of the year, though.
I would agree. But in order to be no one's red hot after hitting a big three. Like you have to build a streak and momentum.
There's momentum. Regardless, there's momentum.
Red hot.
They're gonna beat the Black Bears.
That is so funny. If you guys are red hot, what are the Sizzlers?
Sizzling. But yeah, I mean, no, no one thought we were gonna win that game. That's all I was saying.
No, you're right. No one. Vegas didn't.
No one thought the T-Birds were gonna lose to the Legion either.
But I think there was a lot more surprise on Legion Dogs than T-Birds Legion, even with their best.
I don't think. I mean,
I don't know. That's a really good question.
You had a captain. You guys had a captain,
and
they were captainless.
The spread was 6.5.
I don't care about
week 2 and 5.5 or 6.5 for week 3, 5.5 week 2. So the spread was bigger.
ChatGPT would give you the nod, but I am curious.
The Dogs are minus 800.
No, ChatGPT
per
can be wrong.
ChatGPT. Yeah.
No, I think there's definitely a case. I would say your win was a bigger upset but not by much. I also wouldn't have said the T-Birds were red hot going into week 3. But guys, that closes us out. Doubleheader weekend is going to be a banger. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time.